Spark Books here. Today, I'm going to explain the book, The Culture Map, by Erin Meyer. Take care, enjoy the book, and have a nice day. The Culture Map provides a framework for handling intercultural differences in business and illustrates how different cultures perceive the world. It helps us understand these differences, and in doing so improves our ability to react to certain behaviors that might have once seemed strange. With this knowledge, we can avoid misunderstandings and maintain conflict-free communication, regardless of where we are in the world. Key idea number 1. Sometimes observing is more essential than speaking. Why is international communication so difficult? We frequently encounter varied personalities, values, and humor. Low-context communication is best for multicultural teams since it reduces misconceptions. Avoid being kooky yomani, or cannot read the air, in certain instances. Communication styles can be divided into low-context and high-context cultures, helping us read the air. Low-context societies like the US and Australia communicate clearly to avoid misinterpretation. High-context cultures like Japan and Korea use more delicate and layered communication that requires reading between the lines. No country has 100% low or high context. French managers are higher context than German managers but lower context than Chinese managers. Why are national settings different? History answers. Japan's homogeneous population made people sensitive to subtleties in communication and adept at reading the air. However, American history is shorter and heavily affected by immigrants, needing clear communication to avoid misunderstandings. How can you collaborate with other cultures? Balance listening and speaking. Listen for meaning, not words, in high-context societies. Watch for head shaking or self-restraint that obscures a message. Working with low-context cultures is opposite. Be precise and explain yourself. Low-context communication is best for multicultural teams since it reduces misconceptions. Key idea number 2. Feedback can offend. If you've dealt with people from other cultures, you may have unwittingly offended someone while giving them criticism. The assessing scale helps explain this. Avoid giving feedback in front of others while interacting with high-context, indirect cultures like Japan. It's okay to ignore a suggestion's drawbacks and focus on its benefits. Doing so will show the other person that you prefer to ignore them. You may be polite and supportive by adjusting your conduct and observing others' responses. Direct or indirect criticism is given. Russia and Israel provide colleagues direct feedback. Upgraders like completely and strongly emphasize their message. I totally disagree with your opinion, they would say. Unprofessional. Group criticism is also common. Indirect societies like Japan or Indonesia give mild criticism and hide bad messages with pleasant ones. They also utilize sort of and maybe to communicate. Maybe you should rethink your position. Criticism is private, unlike direct cultures. The communication scale from the preceding blank and the evaluation scale yield 4 groups. Direct feedback and low context, Germany. High context, direct feedback, Russia. Low context, indirect feedback, USA. High context, indirect feedback, Japan. Consider these styles and adjust your feedback to avoid insulting diverse cultures. Avoid giving feedback in front of others while interacting with high context, indirect cultures like Japan. It's okay to ignore a suggestion's drawbacks and focus on its benefits. Doing so will show the other person that you prefer to ignore them. You may be polite and supportive by adjusting your conduct and observing others' responses. Key idea number 3. Observing others' arguments will improve yours. How can culture influence persuasion? The persuasive scale includes principles first and applications first reasoning. Principles first reasoning is deductive. You learn grammatical rules before speaking a new language. Applications first reasoning is inductive. First, you give a theory, then the evidence. In math class, students acquire a formula and practice applying it. After practice, students learn its concepts. France and Italy, which adopt principles first reasoning, tend to ask why before doing something. US and Canadian application first cultures emphasize how rather than why. Thus, a French employee may feel upset with an American boss who gives instructions without explaining why. Thus, to address these disparities, alternate between describing your point's fundamentals and demonstrating its practical applicability. You're presenting at an international conference on why your product is better than your competitors. Start by explaining how your product meets principles first standards. To attract your application first audience, show footage of individuals using your product. Key idea number 4. You must change to lead. How does cultural awareness improve leadership and workflow? Let's check the leading scale of egalitarian and hierarchical cultures. In egalitarian countries like Denmark and the Netherlands, managers mediate between peers. Their organizations are flat, so a marketing director can work directly with a copywriter and use each other's first names. However, China and Nigeria have clear boss-employee hierarchies. Bosses run these organizations. Communication maintains a strict hierarchy. To reach the person 3 ranks above you, first talk to the person directly above you. They'll then ascend above them to reach your target. Note that countries are classified geographically but not necessarily on the leading scale. France is hierarchical, while Sweden is not. According to Professor André Lauren, leadership history explains this difference. France was affected by the hierarchical and centralized Roman Empire, while Sweden was influenced by the Vikings, one of the earliest democracies. Understanding cultural responses to requests helps you manage these disparities. Decisions must incorporate egalitarian workers, facilitate, not supervise, allow autonomy and only intervene when things go wrong. Encourage hierarchical employees to voice their opinions. Most key, state that you are a leader, for instance, using your surname instead of your first. Key idea number 5, implementing ideas requires understanding decision-making processes. Workplace equality doesn't guarantee consensus. Hierarchical cultures also. Decision-making is cultural. Consensual and top-down are the deciding factors. Sweden and the Netherlands take their time in group discussions until they agree. Since everyone has agreed, implementing a decision is quick. In top-down countries like China and India, bosses make decisions alone. They are made faster than consensual countries but often changed later. Continuous revision can delay changes. In the Japanese Ringji system, mid-management receives a proposal, ring issue. Everyone can edit this document until consensus is reached. The document is passed to the next management level and repeated until it reaches the top. Ringji is hierarchical and consensual. If you only know the organizational structure, don't judge decision-making. Like the Ringji system, some top-down structures are consensual. In a multicultural workplace, use one decision-making method. Establish whether decisions will be made by a boss or by consensus. Decide how important consensus is and how flexible decision-making should be. Will it be fixed for years or changeable every few weeks? Finally, review the method for major decisions and ensure everyone understands and accepts it. Key idea number 6, all cultures value trust, but they do so differently. Russian proverb, trust, but verify. Many cultures have rules to prevent businesses from relying solely on trust. Trust, cognitive and effective, is essential to business negotiations. Showing your true self in relationship-based cultures is best. Working with someone for a long time builds cognitive trust. Effective trust is more emotional than experiential and involves friends and family. Task-based to relationship-based cultures are trusting. Task-based cultures like the US and Netherlands build business trust through accomplishments. Relationships can be formed or broken depending on business or profit potential. If a longtime coworker is fired for underperformance, Americans won't care. Brazil and China, however, form partnerships based on shared personal experiences. Executives in China need guanxi to reach a deal. Thus, you should invest time and energy in connecting emotionally with these cultures. Effective trust is useful everywhere, regardless of culture. Task-based trust is cognitive, while relationship-based trust is effective. Relationship-based trust is better than task-based because it can be used anywhere. Finding commonalities with unfamiliar cultures can build trust. You discuss family and music. Sharing these commonalities shows you care about the person, not just the business, and will help you build a personal relationship with your business colleague. Showing your true self in relationship-based cultures is best. Key idea number 7, disagree properly. Some cultures welcome disagreements. However, are you disagreeing with her or her idea? The disagreeing scale shows how people view conflict. Israel and France, which have confrontational disagreeing patterns, distinguish between people and ideas and don't damage relationships. In Paris, two people arguing openly may be friends. Indonesia and Japan, which avoid confrontation, view open conflict as inappropriate and disruptive. Disputing someone's idea is also seen as an attack on them. Emotions are another factor. Cultures can express emotions or not. Germany and France are confrontational, but they disagree differently. Germans disagree rationally. This distinguishes the person from their idea. Berlin has fewer emotional fights than Paris. France is emotionally expressive, so non-French people can't tell if they're being criticized or their idea. Understand how different cultures handle conflict to maintain relationships. Pre-meetings without the boss can prepare for criticism in conflict-averse cultures, so employees can discuss their ideas. This creates a consensus critique rather than a boss or employee critique. Work with more combative cultures with caution. If you don't like confrontation, it's better to debate in a relaxed manner. Key idea number 8, time should be scheduled according to culture. How can German tardiness indicate French punctuality? On the scheduling scale, time perception can range from linear to flexible. Germany and Switzerland complete tasks sequentially. Business values deadlines over flexibility. Behaving unrelated to the task is also impolite, so answering your phone or talking to a colleague during a meeting would look bad. However, flexible time cultures like Saudi Arabia and Kenya can handle many tasks at once. Meetings are non-linear and prioritize adaptability over organization. Even with a schedule, discussions often diverge, subgroups form, and topics not on the schedule are discussed. How do you balance scheduling cultures? You can copy how your coworkers handle tasks. Try this when giving linear cultures a schedule. Plan meetings in detail, emphasize punctuality, and stick to your theme. Plan meetings without limits in flexible cultures. Managers must adapt to changing needs. Building a team culture with its own scheduling rules can help with different cultures. For instance, your group could pretend to be Swiss, where punctuality is valued. You could make latecomers pay €5 to the end-of-year party. Understanding, education, and flexibility can help you adapt your communication and leadership styles to different cultures. Doing so lets you avoid conflict and do business worldwide. To view more content like this, subscribe. Don't forget to like and turn on notifications. The channel really benefits from it. I appreciate you being here.